Hi, guys. In this episode of the TOWTalk Podcast, the ice warehouse rumors are confirmed and the community is forming a response. We also dig deeper into bigger issues affecting our towns, from the collapse of local news to unionizing efforts being blocked in 9 medical facilities in Orange County, to the continuing saga of our financial woes here in the town of Wallkill. But before we get started, please remember to like, share, and subscribe. It goes a long way to helping us to do this work that we do. And also drop us a comment. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned. Welcome to the TOWTalk Podcast. My name is Denise, and I'm here with my buddy Neil. And today we're going to follow up on a report that we did last week regarding a story that there is the possibility that ICE is looking into taking over a warehouse. It's now confirmed that they're looking at the old Pep Boys warehouse in the village of Chester in that industrial park, which we didn't know then, or at least I didn't know then, that that is part of the village of Chester and not the town. So what's happening now is it's generated a lot of interest. People have also watched our podcast, and there's been communication back and forth on Facebook and elsewhere about this happening. And there is going to be I guess, a demonstration tomorrow evening. Oh, let's put that up on the screen there. Yes, no ICE detention camps in Chester. There's going to be a meeting tomorrow evening, Monday, January 12th at 6:30 p.m. in the Village of Chester board meeting. It's at, you can read it right here, 81 LaRoe Road. We're going to be there, and many other people in the community are going to be there, and we want to get that out if you want to attend, if you want to say something. We don't know if they're going to be letting people speak from the community. If they are, we'll both try to say have some words if we can get up there. And so that's what's going on. I think you have some more information since you actually you work for the town, not
I
the
work for the
village.
town, right? Not the village. Right.
Okay.
I
But
have no updates. There,
no
as
updates.
far as I've heard, the town and the village have not been provided any information regarding this. As far as the officials, the local officials, as far as I know, and I haven't spoken to any of them individually, but their whole thing is it's not real until somebody tells them,
okay.
an official tells them, and so far, the federal government hasn't reached out to either the town or as far as I know, and I'm aware.
All right.
So
And
there's no news. I mean, you could show up, but at the end of the day, I'm not sure that there's any information. It would just be to say you don't want it there, or if you show up and you say you do want it there. I mean, it's more just a way for people to get off their chest how they feel about it.
okay. So if you have an opinion about this, this is a good time to speak up before it happens, especially if you don't want it to happen. We have some other local news. Neil, why don't you tell us what's going on?
Yeah, so there's a lot of things happening, and I think one of the things that there, I think what people are struggling with right now is coming to terms with sort of what's happening in communities all around the United States. And one of the things that has been frustrating people like myself, right, and others, right, and one of the reasons why Denise and I sort of decided to do this podcast was the lack of local news everywhere. People don't seem to understand that a lot of these news outlets have been bought up, right, by these large companies. We used to have a local paper, and it was bought out by Dow, that owns USA Today, and has become more like USA Today, where there's no local news. And so, the idea being we need we need some local news. We need people to share their stories and tell us, what's happening locally, what things are impacting you. So please share that information with us. We would love to get that information out to people. One of the things I learned yesterday was that Orange County has 9 healthcare facilities. In each of those healthcare facilities, the employees voted to unionize. You know, in each of those facilities, management has said, no, we're not going to work with the union, and they refuse to negotiate with the union. Right.
Wow.
The news, since there is no local news, nobody's reporting on it and nobody even knows about it. Right. So the idea being, what one of the things that we talked about, and we're happy to help anybody out, we're happy to link up. If you are interested in starting a podcast for your local community, feel free to reach out to us. Let us know what issues you're dealing with. We would be happy to share that information and share whatever information we can about starting a podcast. We would like to create a network of local municipalities, right, within Orange County and maybe beyond, right, of podcasters, where we could all share information and get the word out of what's happening in our local communities, and sharing information about what we care about in those communities. So, please feel free to reach out to us and and share with us your stories and what's happening in your local communities. The more I talk to people, the more we publish podcasts, the more we hear about how corrupt and messed up other local municipalities are that are
Oh,
facing similar either
absolutely.
either financial issues, corruption, you name it, that doesn't get reported and doesn't get out there. And granted, I will say Denise and I are not journalists in any stretch of the imagination, but we want to create a network and we want to basically share. Listen, without having real journalists in our area who are willing to report on issues affecting our local communities, it's beholden on us as residents to share
To
that
be the
information and do it. And granted, I mean, I think we've said numerous times when we share information that we don't have all the information, that we're continuing to look into matters, we're continuing to investigate. We want more information, we want better information. If we report something wrong, are happy to issue retractions and tell people exactly what was going on. I mean, one of the reasons Denise and I kind of started this was the fact that I was sitting there fighting with news outlets to report that the town of Wallkill lost their bond rating, right? And the and had money stolen from it, right? Like, and
remember that.
outlets wouldn't report anything. I couldn't get local news to report anything, any of the facts associated with the case,
It
and I think
wasn't
that
big
that's
enough for them.
right. It wasn't national news. It wasn't sexy. It was local towns, and this is where, I mean, we're seeing it now, right? With the ice facility, with other things that are happening, these national news are affecting us locally. The Amazon warehouse, right? All these things are, and there's really just not enough good information out there. There's nobody doing the research, there's nobody foiling stuff, there's nobody putting stuff together. So we're trying our best to kind of piece that together, and with part of saying that, I did finally get a look at a balance sheet for the town of Wallkill, and very disappointed, very disappointed. um it, you have no idea how much money the town has. No idea. You can take a look at that.
Why am I not surprised? They
You
have
have no
I
idea. They're 2 years behind. You have no idea. 2, maybe even more years behind. You have honestly no idea. I
Jesus.
mean, the last good numbers that they have are back in 2022, right?
Jesus.
23, 24, 25. So 3 years. 3 years really hasn't been updated. They have no idea. No idea.
What the hell were
And
they
and
doing all this time?
and from the look of it, the town may have spent, approximately, 2 million a year, I want to say. Um, you know, given that they're, given the way the finances kind of rolled out and stuff like that, it looks like they were operating at a loss for the last 3 years of approximately, like, 2 million a year. So the town may
That's a big
have,
loss.
right, the town may have, not that much money left. If you take your base year of 2022 of 12 million, right? And then you say, okay, on average, if they spend even, spend 2 million a year or even 1.5 a year, what does that really bring you down to? They may not even have enough money to get through the year,
So
is the
this
way it
is
may come
interesting.
down
I
to.
want to stop you right there and bring you back. Get my hand out of the screen. Sorry, and bring you back and bring everybody back to the election cycle. And Neil attended a sort of a impromptu town hall situation at the Wildflowers, a community, a senior community here in the town of Wallkill. They have a, I guess, a little conference center, and they had all the candidates there, and the Republican candidate Ralph Carr stood up in front of the audience and announced that there was a $12 million surplus in the budget from 2022. And you said at the time when we posted that clip here. You can look back. It was back in October that this took place. You can see him say that in front of the audience. And then Neil and I wondering, well, now it's been 3 years. How do you know that money's still there? Well, yeah, you know it was there 3 years ago. What's there today? And here's the answer. Here's the answer, folks. It looks like
Yeah.
it's looking like we might be broke.
Well, if you got to remember, 3 years, even if it was 1 point, we'll be really, really conservative to be nice, right? So you say 1.5 million. So say 1.5 million is what our loss was for the last 3 years. That's what, 4.5 million, that the town would be down. Okay. So, 4.5 million from 12, you're looking at what, 7.5 million, that you would have left. But you have another 2 million planned for this year. Okay. That for 2026, because that was what the budget was. It was a budget deficit of roughly $2 million. So now you're looking at another 2 million. So, and given the way cash flow works, right, to go a different route for it, I'm going to tell people this. A lot of municipalities, when they get towards the end of the year and they start prepaying, and I'm going to get a little wonky on the accounting, you start prepaying some expenses for the following year. Okay. Sometimes you need to borrow some money from another fund to get you through until you collect your tax revenue. That doesn't mean you're broke. It just means, like, you have a little bit of a fund gap. Okay.
Okay.
Right.
All right. That
Like
makes
you're
sense.
a money gap based on what you're prepaying. This has happened to me last year. It's happening to me this year. Is because we have generally small funds, right? Like they're not really large, and some of the prepayments tend to be very, very large, like when you start dealing with insurance, not insurance and pension money. Okay. Especially the pension stuff. The pension stuff is, forget about it. All right. Um, but the town of Wallkill, which, as we saw the candidate Carr say, the town was supposed to be flush with cash, right? And the town only has one fund. They don't have a village. So they should have tons of money, a pool of money, where they wouldn't go into the negative. From what my understanding is money was borrowed in December, right, to prepay some bills, right? And if you're borrowing money in December to prepay bills,
Going
right,
into the next year.
right, going into the next year, and you have a planned, remember, it's planned, $2 million budget deficit, you may not be getting through to the end of the year.
Wow.
You may not have enough cash to get you through to the end of the
Well,
year,
that's devastating.
and you got to remember, they have projects that they received grants for that they need to. These are spend grants, which means you have to expend the money first before you get the money back, right? So you need money to float to be able to do that. And what this is telling me is that that the financial straits of the town may be worse than what we feared. I was kind of hopeful that maybe their incompetence would have led to a little bit more money being around, but apparently they just decided that they were just gonna spend money like it was going out of style, like they just didn't give a shit, you know.
Yeah, which is the
And
story of corruption today.
right, and to top it off, best part of topping the cherry on top, right? So the town spent, I don't know, like what, $80,000, $20,000, who the hell knows, on getting a new one of those electronic billboards outside town hall. When
Yeah,
you
the
drive
sign that's
by,
there
you get
now.
to right,
Yeah,
you get
yeah.
the
By the
electronic
way,
sign.
I just wanna say that thing is fucking bright. At night,
Yes,
it hits you, you're at the traffic light, you wanna go past it, and you can't see because it's so bright. It's in your
yes.
face. But anyway,
Well,
continue.
if you've driven by, and you're locally, and you've driven by, and you see that they're still advertising Kwanzaa and Hanukkah and Christmas and all that kind of stuff. The specific reason for that is that when it was installed, and I've talked about the guy often, right? The clerk in the supervisor's office, right, Larry, um, apparently was the only one who had the password, and he's refusing to provide the password to the town to be able to update the board. Yeah,
Oh, man. This again, this is this goes back to petty politics. This is absolutely petty, there's no reason for it. Is
it's
there any
not
way
just petty. It's just you know you we're all supposed to be here living in this community. We're all supposed to work together. I understand politics is tough and everybody, gets upset when they lose, right? But, you know, when you lose, you walk away, right? Or you do whatever you can to help the next administration so that they can be successful. And that's the way it works. That's the way I've always operated. I've never had any hard feelings about losing or anything like that. It just happens to be this is what you do. And these guys act so freaking petty and they care so little about their community because it's all about them, right? They keep showing themselves how much it's about them. He's pouting, he's crying, whatever he's doing, and he's refusing to provide the password, right? And keep in mind, he's still an employee of the town. He hasn't been let go by the board yet, right? So like this is how he acts, right? Like he should never have been an employee to begin with because he was always the campaign manager for the supervisor at the time. So the fact that so now what he's basically showing is he was never an employee of the town. The town was paying his salary. The town was putting into his pension. The town was paying his health care, but he's basically saying I wasn't a town employee. I was George's campaign manager. And therefore, I'm going to continue to act as his campaign manager or as it were, Ralph Carr's campaign manager,
wow. What
So
exactly is his role? I don't even know. You hear about this guy all the time. What's his job title? What does he fucking do?
he has none. That was the scary part. So when he first came in, he was hired as the community center liaison, right? So he would help book the community center, all that. But then, I kept asking what his role actually was, right? And I got no answer. The best I came up
Interesting.
with on my own is that he was essentially the supervisor's valet. He went everywhere with the supervisor. He took pictures for the supervisor's Facebook page, right? Which keep in mind, right? He was being paid by the town to do these things.
And then doing stuff for the personal,
Right.
social media of the supervisor. So
Where
he's
where
really
where where did the campaign end? And right, so the idea being the campaign never ends, and he decided that he wanted to pay his campaign manager, but he didn't want to do it out of his own pocket, so the town paid for it. That's really what it comes down to.
So think about that, folks. If you're living here in the town of Wallkill, you're paying somebody is still who is still considered an employee of of the town, but is still ultimately doing the work of the previous supervisor who is no longer in an elected
In
role
office. Right.
or in
And
office.
refuses to hand over his passwords, which I would mind you, right? Like, here's the other stupidity, right? The former supervisor created a policy that all passwords have to reside in the supervisor's office, right? Like,
Except for that,
so
apparently, except for that one.
except for that one, right? Right.
Well,
This has been right.
there should be a way to reset that password and just and make a new one. I mean, we've all lost our passwords.
I know everybody. Listen. When you got a new administration in there's there's a lot of things you got to figure out on your own. you know, when you change an administration, there's a lot of things you got to figure out on your own because there's not really a good transition. Nobody
Well,
really
definitely not
transitions, and
here.
nobody's willing to help you. You
Yeah,
know.
there's definitely no real transition going on here. Obviously, we know that they really didn't communicate a lot. After the election and going into the inauguration, and now you have someone left over who's just deliberately trying to sabotage the system. Like, there's no reason not to turn that password over. It's just really, really petty and stupid. Anything more you want to add that's going on?
Um, not really much going on, other than that. I mean, there are little things here and there. I mean, we've seen a lot of protests. We'll talk a little bit more about that in our next segment. But for the most part, just everybody trying to kick off the year and start the year off right. I mean, as much as 2026 has been one of those, like, hey, like, I want my money back on this subscription,
Yeah,
right? Right. Everybody's just trying to get through, trying
yeah,
to get through.
yeah. So we have another segment coming up. We've got more information and stuff coming at you, but we're gonna wind up here. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. As always, leave a comment, hopefully a positive one. We appreciate you. Tuesday night will be our live stream. And in the meantime, take care. We'll see you soon.
Peace.